Today, we are reviewing a highly atmospheric video script designed to activate a profound shift in the audience's perception of reality, consciousness, and manifestation.
Yeah, and the author has this genuinely strong command of hypnotic, resonant pacing right out of the gate.
They really do, but we need to transition directly into how the overarching structure is currently holding that brilliant pacing back. So a key theme running through this material seems to be the idea that reality is an inside-out projection.
Right, generated by our internal state rather than external circumstances.
Exactly. But reading this feels a bit like watching a pendulum swing. I mean, it is mesmerizing, but it stays in the exact same place.
The script's hypnotic rhythm effectively draws the audience in, but its cyclical repetition of the core premise eventually dilutes the initial impact.
Yeah, it really does.
Because the text repeatedly circles back to the exact same concept, that the inner dimensions create the outer reality using multiple redundant metaphors.
Right. Like, first we're introduced to the screen and the projector.
Exactly. And then, a few pages later, we transition to the ocean and the wave.
Oh, and just when you think you're moving forward?
Boom, we get the garden and the seed.
Yeah, it's just a lot of the same heavy lifting.
It is. Because the narrative loops back to the baseline philosophy instead of raising the stakes. It stalls the momentum and prevents the listener from advancing to deeper practical understanding.
Which is tough because I totally get why the author did it.
Oh, for sure.
When you're dealing with incredibly abstract concepts like the mental dimension or, witnessing consciousness, there is a strong temptation to panic as a writer.
Yeah, you think, did they get it? Better explain it 2 more times just in case.
Right. You are building a philosophical house on a cloud, so you naturally want to reinforce the floorboards. But how do you trust the audience enough to actually move on?
By streamlining the philosophical repetition to build an escalating progression that moves swiftly from the core theory into distinct, intensifying practical applications.
Okay, so what does that actually look like on the page?
These are just a few ways to solve this. First, introduce the core screen versus projector concept once. It is a brilliant, sticky analogy, but then cut the ocean and the wave and the garden and the seed entirely.
Just cut them completely?
Completely. Cut them to make room for an escalating timeline of practice. Instead of restating the philosophy in the middle, transition immediately into a vivid, real-world case study.
Oh, like someone actually shifting their emotional signal in real time?
Exactly. Show them in a high-stress, relatable environment, like sitting in a tense corporate meeting or navigating a sudden financial crisis.
That grounds it so much better. You describe the tightening of the chest, the heat rising in the face.
Yes, the instinct to defend yourself, and then you narrate the real-time shift.
I love that. But what about the section where the script breaks down the 3 dimensions, the physical, the emotional, and the mental?
Right now, it essentially just lists them.
Yeah, like a table of contents.
So instead, restructure the 3 dimensions so that each dimension introduces a progressively more advanced witnessing technique, rather than just restating that the dimension exists.
Oh, that makes sense. So moving from just noticing physical sensations up to witnessing a triggering emotion.
And finally, guiding them to witness the origin of thought itself in the mental dimension.
It turns a philosophical loop into a functional staircase.
Exactly.
And once that structural bloat is cleared out, the specific evidence used to anchor the remaining arguments must be incredibly sharp.
It really does.
Let's look closely at the section discussing the observer effect in quantum physics, because I have to push back a little. Does bringing hard physics into a purely spiritual script break the mystical immersion for some listeners?
Leaning on the observer effect from quantum mechanics provides a familiar scientific anchor, yet the current execution feels overly conventional and risks alienating discerning listeners.
Yeah, that's exactly what I felt reading it.
Using the phrase, the observer effect collapses the wave of possibility, is a heavily utilized trope within manifestation content.
It's everywhere.
It really is, because the listener is aiming for a unique activation rather than standard information. Relying on this cliched analogy makes the material feel like a borrowed concept rather than a fresh revelation.
The audience's deep engagement just suddenly drops. It's like, watching a beautifully directed fantasy film and suddenly a character pulls out a modern smartphone.
That is exactly what it feels like. The illusion shatters. So the suggestion here is to evolve the scientific metaphor by either personalizing the physics analogy or pivoting to a more grounded psychological framework that supports the mystical tone without relying on cliché.
Okay, so how do we pivot without it sounding like a a dry biology textbook.
Well, here are a few possible approaches. You could replace the quantum physics tangent with a grounded explanation of neuroplasticity and the brain's reticular activating system, the RAS.
Oh, right, the manifestation filter.
Yeah, detailing how the brain literally filters physical reality based on the emotional dimensions the script previously discussed.
So you present the biology as a mechanism that validates the mysticism rather than interrupting it.
Exactly. But if the author prefers to keep the quantum angle, they should avoid the standard collapsing the wave language and instead explore quantum entanglement.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, using it as a metaphor for how a person's inner emotional state is intimately and instantaneously tethered to their external circumstances.
That feels significantly more nuanced, but honestly, I think the boldest move would be to omit the scientific justification entirely.
Just cut it?
Yeah, just lean fully into the poetic, philosophical authority already established in the first half of the script. Treat the mind as an artistic canvas rather than a physics experiment.
I completely see the merit in that. If you don't feel the need to borrow authority from neuroscience, the audience intuitively trusts your authority more.
Exactly. Preserving that unique authority is so critical, especially when it comes time to ask the audience to take physical action.
The calls to action.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I really like about this part is the transcendent, ego-dissolving atmosphere the author has meticulously cultivated. It feels genuinely sacred, but then we get hit with these standard YouTube engagement requests mid-trance. That's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered how jarring that transition truly is for the nervous system.
Oh, it's terrible.
The transcendent, ego-dissolving atmosphere cultivated throughout the piece clashes abruptly with the standard transactional engagement request.
It really does.
Inserting phrases like, hit that like button, leave a single word below, and stopping to pitch the Beyond the Frequencies book breaks the hypnotic spell of the script.
You're floating in theta brainwaves and someone starts shouting about a loyalty program?
Right. It jolts the audience from a state of deep, non-transactional awareness back into the exact physical, transactional dimension the script just warned them to detach from.
It's the ultimate contradiction. The physical dimension is just an illusion, don't try to manipulate it. Oh, but please click the physical thumbs up icon to appease the algorithm.
Which is why the author needs to weave the calls to action seamlessly into the philosophical fabric of the script, so they feel like natural extensions of the inner work, rather than conventional marketing interruptions.
So give me an example of how they actually script that without it sounding manipulative.
Consider these creative alternatives. Instead of asking them to hit the like button, phrase the action as a physical manifestation of their new state.
Okay, how?
Say something like, let this moment of alignment leave a physical trace in the world. Mark this video to signal your commitment to this new frequency.
Oh, wow. That completely changes the texture of the request. It makes it about their journey.
Exactly. And as for the heavier promotional lifting, relocate the promotion for the book and the quantum audio completely to the end of the script, after the final breathing meditation, to protect the sacred space of the core message.
Let them safely land back in their bodies.
Right. And when you do pitch it, frame the book promotion not as a purchase, but as a continuation of their awakening. For those ready to map the deeper dimensions you are now standing on the edge of, Beyond the Frequencies is the compass.
The compass, I love that. It uses the illusion to hand them a tool.
It's all about keeping the resonance intact.
Well, to briefly recap our three main takeaways today. First, streamline the repetitive metaphors to build escalating practical momentum. Second, refresh the scientific analogies to avoid those manifestation cliches. And third, integrate the calls to action so they intimately match the script's transcendent tone.
This piece is already so close to being a truly transformative experience. We would warmly invite the listener to implement these structural and tonal shifts and submit the revised material back in for a future critique.
Absolutely. You cannot just forcefully cone the glass of the mirror with recycled jargon. Change the underlying structure, and the reflection will take care of itself.